You ever have one of those nights where the universe kicks a door open for you and then cackles while you stand there wishing you could disappear? Darius Cole would ask himself that question many times in the months that followed. But in that moment, all he could do was stare. The door he just pushed open revealed something he was never meant to see. There she stood, Sloan Hargrove, the 9-year-old CEO of Hargrove Energy Solutions, barely wrapped in a towel, her hair damp from a post-workout shower, eyes wide with the kind of shock that ends careers. Darius stumbled backward like the floor had turned to hot asphalt beneath his boots. I thought this was the HVAC access closet, he managed, voice cracking already, backing out before the latch clicked shut. His face burned. He didn't look back. He moved through the executive corridor, not running, because running meant guilt, just walking with a pace that said, "Please, let the ground swallow me whole." The elevator took forever. Every second that passed felt like a count in a countdown he didn't want to reach the end of. At 44, Darius had absorbed more than his share of hard landings. Laid off twice in 7 years. Once wrongly accused of stealing tools from a job site where he'd spent half a decade building something he was proud of, a memory that still left a sour taste in the back of his throat. He had clawed back each time, not for pride, but for one reason. His daughter Maya, 11 years old, sharp as a compass needle, and the kind of kid who noticed the things most adults had trained themselves to stop seeing. The position at Hargrove Energy Solutions Knight's facilities tech was more than a paycheck. It was a foothold, a way back. And now he'd just torched it by opening the wrong door. Down in the basement, where the smell of machine oil and industrial cleaner felt like familiar company, Darius leaned against a supply rack and gripped the metal edge until the spinning behind his eyes slowed. The worst part wasn't the embarrassment. The worst part was who he'd embarrassed. Sloan Hargrove wasn't just a name on a building directory. She was the most talked about executive in Houston, the woman who had taken over a $2.8 billion energy company at 26 after her father's heart gave out without warning. Young, relentless, and by every account, not someone who let things go quietly. That night at home, Maya sat at the kitchen table, working on one of her elaborate drawings, a city she'd been building in a sketchbook for months. She looked up and studied him. "You've got that face," she said. "What face?" "The one like you, stepped in something you can't explain." He managed a half smile. "Long night, baby girl. Go finish your map." The days that followed were a particular kind of slow-motion suspense. No call, no reprimand, no letter from HR. Darius moved through his shifts like a shadow, skipping the executive floors, keeping his head down, pretending the whole thing was something that had happened to someone else. It was Ray Okafor who finally broke the silence. Ray had been watching over this building since before Sloan was old enough to drive, and he had a gift for delivering important information with complete calm, like he was discussing the weather. He found Darius near the freight elevator on Thursday and held out a paper cup of coffee. "Boss lady asked about you," Ray said. Darius blinked. "Asked what your name." That's all she wanted. Didn't call legal, didn't call HR. Just asked. Ray took a slow sip of his own coffee. "Could be a door opening for you, son. Could be a test." Hard to say with her. That weekend, Darius sat at his kitchen table long after Maya went to sleep. A blank page in front of him. He didn't write to beg. He didn't write to explain himself out of a corner. He wrote plainly what happened, why he was in that hallway, that he understood completely if she chose to report it. He owned the mistake without drama or decoration. 5 drafts, then a 6th. He sealed the envelope and handed it to Ray the next shift without another word. Then let it go. Monday evening, he was on the 15th floor, replacing a set of recessed fixtures when the sharp tap of heels announced someone who didn't need an announcement. He turned from the ladder and there she was, Sloan Hargrove. Suit-pressed posture, straight expression, giving absolutely nothing away. "Darius Cole," she said. "Not a question." "Yes, ma'am. I read your letter." She held his gaze a beat longer than comfortable. "You didn't reach for a single excuse. Most people in your position would have filled 3 pages with them." The silence between them stretched like a wire, pulled almost to snapping. Then she held out a manila folder. Inside, a work order for the complete lighting reconfiguration of her office suite. Night shift. Full access. It wasn't exactly forgiveness. It wasn't warmth, but it was something Darius hadn't expected from a woman like her. It was trust. Later that night, walking past the corridor where it all started, he paused for just a breath, then kept walking. Some doors, you close them and move forward. but what they open in you that tends to stay. Back home, Maya had fallen asleep with her sketchbook open on her chest crayon still in hand. Darius pulled the blanket up around her and whispered, "Maybe things are finally turning, baby." He had no idea how right or how complicated that would turn out to be. The following week moved like walking a tightrope over a long, quiet drop. Darius arrived at the Hargrove Tower each night with a new kind of alertness. The work order wasn't just a task, it was a signal. He treated it like one. He didn't linger near her office unless summoned, didn't let his eyes drift to documents spread across her desk, stayed focused on the fixtures, the wiring, the tools in his hands. But Sloane Hargrove was hard to ignore. At 29, she moved through those boardrooms with the easy authority of someone hardened by loss and sharpened by necessity. She rarely made small talk. When she did speak, it was direct, never a word wasted. Yet she hadn't fired him, hadn't escalated it. In the quiet architecture of that building, that meant something. One Thursday, while he adjusted a track light above her conference table, she stood at the window on a callback to him. "I don't care how much they're bringing to the table," she said, voice low and controlled. "If a partner can't respect a boundary, they're not a partner. They're a liability. Close it." She ended the call and turned. "Cole, do you have a minute?" He stepped down from the ladder. "Yes, ma'am." She gestured at the accent lamps along the credenza. "These burn out faster than the specs claim. Any idea why?" He crouched and unscrewed the cap on the nearest one. "Halogens. Nice for atmosphere, but not designed for 12-hour days. I'd swap them for LEDs, same warm tone, half the heat output, 3 times the lifespan." She nodded once. "Do it." Small moment. Simple exchange. But something cracked open. The next night, she surprised him again. "You always on nights?" "Easier with my daughter," he said, not looking up from his toolbox. "I pick her up from school in the afternoons. Nights work better for us." "How old?" 11. "Maya. Good at math, hates history." He caught himself. "Sorry. You didn't ask for the full picture." Sloane tilted her head. Something shifted in her posture. Not quite a smile, but in the neighborhood of one. "I hated history too," she said quietly, almost to herself. Over the following days, small exchanges settled into a quiet rhythm. She didn't overshare, but occasionally she offered slivers that she'd taken over Hargrove at 26, when her father's heart failed without warning. That she worked 14-hour days because stillness made the grief too loud. That her apartment sat largely empty because she hadn't figured out what to fill it with. "People confuse solitude with loneliness," she said one evening while they reviewed a wiring schematic together. "Sometimes you're alone because the alternative is just another disappointment you didn't see coming." Darius listened. He didn't offer advice, didn't try to fix it. He was good at being present without applying pressure. Life had taught him that. Years of being the man in the room that nobody really looked at had trained him to read silence, to sense when words helped and when they only got in the way. And somehow Sloane kept pulling him back into the orbit of her trust. Then one night the building exhaled wrong. Not a standard flicker, something deeper. A low resonant pulse that moved through the walls like a held breath finally released. Darius felt it before he heard it. His instincts, built across years of working with old infrastructure, kicked in immediately. "That's not a normal fluctuation," he said, moving toward the main panel at the end of the corridor. Sloane followed without being asked. He pulled open the access box and scanned the array. This system was rigged for redundancy. A drop like that shouldn't happen unless his voice fell away as his eyes found it. Wedged behind the secondary circuit board, almost flush with the casing. A small device. An override relay. Aftermarket. Invisible unless you knew exactly what you were looking for. Unless someone put it there, he finished. Sloane's voice was quiet, controlled. "You're saying someone tampered with our systems?" He didn't answer right away. He pulled out his phone and photographed the device from 3 angles. "I'm saying this chip did not come from the manufacturer." He paused. "And it's not new." The air between them thickened. She looked down the corridor, suddenly aware of how still the building felt. "Who has access to this panel?" He listed the usual IT security facilities, senior engineering. Long list. Too porous. She exhaled. "Don't say a word to anyone." Not yet. In the days that followed, Darius started noticing things he'd previously filed under noise. He pulled the CCTV archive logs when the security desk was quiet. What he found stopped him. Every night between midnight and 2:30 a.m., the executive floor feeds glitched. Not once, 5 times in 2 weeks. Each gap lasted only seconds, always near the server room, always without explanation. He brought the timestamps to Sloane. She leaned over the monitor to read them close enough that he caught the faint cedar and jasmine scent of her, which was not something he was going to let himself think about. "Someone's been covering their tracks," she said. "Whoever it is," he replied, "they know the blind spots." She studied him for a moment, the kind of look that weighs a person, instead of just seeing them. Then she reached into her leather satchel and slid 2 items across the table. A second work order, and beneath it a folded schematic covered in handwritten notes. Access logs, floor plans, names. "I need someone I can trust," she said. "Not just to fix the lights." He picked up the schematic, studied it, looked at her. "You sure you want to trust the guy who opened your door by accident? That mistake was human," she said. "What's happening inside this system is not." He took the papers. That night, Maya caught him staring at nothing over the dinner table. "Dad, you okay? You look like you're doing math in a language you don't speak." He kissed the top of her head. Something like that baby girl. He didn't know where this road was going. But for the first time in a long time, Darius Cole felt like someone had looked at him, not at his badge, not at his work order, not at the skin or the age or the twice laid off, but at him, the man with something real to offer. And that, it turned out, was exactly what this moment needed. The next night, Darius arrived with his worn leather-filled notebook tucked against his side. He'd been carrying it since his first facilities job, pages thick with wiring diagrams and maintenance notes. He was using it differently now, logging anomalies, mapping patterns. The power surge that hit at 1:47 a.m., like a clock. The emergency stairwell that always carried the ghost of cigarette smoke despite a smoke-free policy. The 18th floor door that never quite latched despite 3 repair requests. At 2:45, Sloane arrived with a folder and 2 black coffees. Inside the folder, network logs, timestamps, and something worse, encrypted files that had been leaving the R&D division through a back door. "Built into the system over a year ago," she said quietly. "My father didn't authorize it. Neither did I. Whoever built it knew our architecture the way you'd know a house you grew up in. The data surges all traced to a single node on the 18th floor. Listed as inactive storage, old prototype equipment, forgotten filing cabinets, a decommissioned server bank. Nobody worked there, officially." He went up just past midnight. The corridor was dim motion sensors, keeping the lights barely alive. As he pushed open the archive room door, his boot caught something plastic, freshly stripped cable sheath. He followed the trail to a corner panel, screwed back into place, but not quite flush. Behind it, a USB relay device blinked faintly. Someone had been here recently. Very recently. He photographed everything, put the panel back, and pulled the door shut. He was back in the corridor when he heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, not building security, not housekeeping. Heavy soles, purposeful pace. He stepped into the nearest utility closet and held still. A figure passed. Dark overcoat, briefcase, phone pressed to his ear. Darius strained to catch the words. "Phase 2 is set for Tuesday," the man said, voice low. "She doesn't know anything yet." The figure turned the corner and was gone. Darius went straight to Sloane. She was at her desk, eyes raw from screen hours. He set the USB relay in front of her without a word. She stared at it. "You've got a ghost on 18, he said. "Did you see who not the face? But I heard enough." He told her what he'd caught. She leaned back slowly. "Tuesday," she said. "That gives us 4 days. 4 days for what? To catch them before they move." That night, Darius lay awake, listening to the old radiator knock and hiss. Maya's slow, steady breathing drifted through the wall. This had stopped being about loose wires and flickering lights a long time ago. Someone wanted to dismantle what Sloane had spent 3 years rebuilding, and they were very nearly finished. The next afternoon, he found Ray near the loading dock and asked about archived footage from the 18th floor. Ray's face tightened. "Pulled last week. IT said they needed it for a security review." "Who logged the pull?" "Pemberton." "Facilities director." Ray paused. Seemed off. "But I don't ask questions." Darius did. He pulled Pemberton's keycard logs and cross-referenced them against the network surge timestamps Sloane had given him. The match was too clean to dismiss. Pemberton was in the building every single time. Signed out at 2:28 a.m. Every single time. He'd been looking at the answer from the beginning. Saturday, Sloane called a closed meeting. Just 3 people, her, Darius and Priya Anand, a senior data analyst in R&D who Sloan trusted completely. Together they mapped the trap. A secondary monitoring relay installed in the 18th floor's subpanel, something Pemberton wouldn't detect. A staged firmware update notice to see if he reacted. Then they'd watch. Sunday unfolded in careful, orchestrated normalcy. Darius repaired a stuck loading dock door, replaced 2 soap dispensers, helped an accounting clerk whose desk drawer had come off its track. Routine. Invisible. But his eyes never stopped moving. That evening he picked Maya up from his sister Carla's house. Maya ran to the truck with her sketchbook under her arm. "I made something for your notebook," she said, pressing a post-it into his hand. Marker on a bright yellow square. It said Dad's Field Notes. Eyes open. He stuck it on the inside cover of the leather notebook and drove home in something close to peace. Midnight Sunday. 18th floor. The relay blinked green. Active. At 1:253 a.m. Footsteps in the stairwell. The same measured pace he'd heard before. He pressed back into the shadow of a filing rack, breathing shallow. The figure appeared, removed a keycard, and slipped into the archive room. Pemberton. 10 minutes later, he came back out, phone in hand, typing fast. Darius waited, then went in. The relay had caught everything, every keystroke, every directory, every outbound packet. He called Sloan. "We've got him," he said. Outside the building, Houston hummed through the dark. Darius walked toward the elevator and finally let his shoulders come down. He wasn't a detective. He wasn't trained for any of this. But tonight he was something rarer, a man who paid attention when no one thought it mattered. And that, it turned out, was enough. Monday arrived, wrapped in the particular stillness of a trap about to close. The Hargrove Tower opened as it always did. Badge swipes elevator chimes, the smell of lobby coffee rolling through the atrium. Pemberton walked in at 8:47 a.m., wearing his usual pressed shirt, nodding at colleagues, stopping to complain about the parking garage. Nothing in his posture suggested he had any idea. That was the thing about betrayal in buildings like this. It wore the same face as everyone else. At 10:15 a.m., Sloan walked into the executive conference room on the 22nd floor with 2 security officers and the company's general counsel. She said only 4 words to Pemberton as he followed her in. "Close the door, please." 17 minutes later, he came out. No smirk, just a jaw like concrete and eyes that couldn't find anywhere to land. He moved through the lobby without speaking to a single person and walked out through the glass doors into the Houston heat. Sloan appeared seconds behind him, composed, unreadable. Through the security monitor, she met Darius's eyes and gave one small nod. That afternoon, an internal memo circulated. Derek Pemberton was no longer with Hargrove Energy Solutions. No cause listed, no elaboration. The people who knew understood. That evening, as Darius worked through a server panel, ensuring no trace of Pemberton's tampering remained, Sloan appeared in the doorway. She watched him for a moment. "He was here when I arrived," she said quietly. "My father hired him. I never thought to question his loyalty." A pause. Maybe that was naive. Darius didn't turn around. Trust isn't naive. It's just he tightened a connection. It costs more when it fails than we expect. She walked closer and held out an envelope. Inside, a formal document. A title change. Facilities Operations Consultant. New hours, new rate, a seat at the weekly strategy briefings. "Ma'am, before you tell me you didn't do this for a title," she said, "I know that. That's exactly why it's yours." He folded the paper and tucked it into his back pocket without another word. The days that followed brought Darius into parts of the building he'd never been authorized to enter. He worked alongside the core systems team, identifying inefficiencies buried under years of neglect, simplifying processes that had grown complicated through nobody's attention. He wasn't showing off. He was just paying attention, the skill he'd always had, only now someone was actually listening. Maya noticed the change before he told her anything. "You're different," she said over dinner. "Different how? You sit like you own the chair now." He laughed, really laughed, and she joined him, and for a few minutes the weight of everything didn't reach the kitchen table. But the building wasn't finished with them. One night he found something waiting in his locker. A handwritten note on plain white paper. No signature. "You think you've cleared the room? You haven't. Some foundations were rotten before you arrived." He brought it to Sloan. She read it twice, jaw tight. Pemberton. Maybe Darius said, or maybe Pemberton was just the floor above the basement. A chill settled between them that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. That night, Darius pulled out the building's original blueprints and marked every dead zone, every gap outside camera range, every signal blind spot, every corner that had been quietly overlooked during the last security upgrade. He counted 6, all clustered in legacy areas. Old storage, a decommissioned lab, a subfloor archive that had been sealed since a failed acquisition 7 years ago. He and Sloan met late in the archive room and spread the map between them. "Every anomaly we found," she said slowly, "is tied to zones nobody thought to monitor. Which means whatever's still running, it's been hiding in exactly the places no one had a reason to look," he said. She met his eyes. "We didn't close this chapter. We just turned a page. Then we keep reading," he said. Together. Outside, the Houston night pressed warm and close against the glass. Inside, the building held its breath. The following Monday came in, gray and humid, the kind of Texas morning that felt like the weather was trying to warn you about something it hadn't worked up the nerve to say out loud. Darius arrived early and went straight to the south stairwell. The night before, he'd hidden a small motion sensor behind a loose baseboard tile. It had logged movement at 3:22 a.m. No authorized access, no maintenance request. He checked the CCTV. The feed was clean, too clean, wiped, which meant someone inside security had override access. He brought the logs to Sloan and watched her expression close like a window shutting. "This isn't residual from Pemberton," she said. "No, this is someone still active, still inside." In the secondary server room, it got worse. Someone had reactivated a dormant IP address tied to a decommissioned division called Hargrove Biotech, shut down 7 years ago after a failed acquisition that had cost $47 million and gutted an entire department. The IP had been silent since. Now it pulsed steadily small and measured like a heartbeat trying not to be heard. Sloan stared at the logs for a long time. That division was my father's great experiment. He poured everything into it. When it failed, he sealed it and never spoke of it again. Her voice was careful, controlled. He said there were aspects of it that needed to stay buried. Darius watched her face. Could this be personal? Something targeting the family specifically? A slow breath. With my father, everything was personal. That evening, she asked him to meet her on the rooftop. The city spread below them, refineries and glass towers, and the distant shimmer of the ship channel lit orange against the dark. She stood with her arms folded against the breeze. "What if someone above Pemberton is still in this building?" she asked. Watching us work through this piece by piece, Darius leaned on the railing. "You're asking if we've been inside someone else's view this whole time." She turned toward him. "I'm asking if we were ever hunting, or if we've been bait." He drove home through 3rd Ward with the windows down and his grandfather's voice in his head. "The person who smiles at you longest in a crisis is counting what you're worth to them." He hadn't thought about that in years. He was thinking about it now. The next morning, Darius paid a visit to an old colleague, Desmond Okafor, Ray's older brother, a retired network engineer who'd worked Hargrove's biotech division during its active years. Desmond lived in a bungalow in Acres Homes, mint plants on every windowsill, circuit boards on every shelf like trophies. "Deep layer masking," Desmond said, reading glasses on the tip of his nose as he scanned the logs. "Backdoor architecture. Whoever built this knows our old biotech blueprint like they designed it." He looked up. Because they probably did. There was a woman named Greta Nichols, senior executive assistant to Sloan's father, but she had access that went well beyond the title. When biotech shut down, she went with it, retired quietly. Back at Hargrove, Darius pulled the employment archives. Greta Nichols had indeed retired, but 8 months later, a temp named Fern Calloway had been hired in the R&D department. Similar work history. Similar photo, different hair, different glasses. She worked the 18th floor. Quiet, reliable, well-liked. Darius brought the file to Sloan. She went very still. "She used to bring my father his coffee every morning," Sloan said softly. "She knew every person in that building, every vendor, every contract." She stared at the photo. "We've been looking in completely the wrong direction." Darius pushed a maintenance cart through the 18th floor with the unhurried confidence of a man who belonged there. Beneath the cart and the Hargrove badge, he carried a concealed audio device and a copy of Fern Calloway's personnel file. He knew her office, the corner room, with the blinds always angled to block the view from the hall. He knocked. 2 quiet taps. "Come in," said a calm, measured voice. The woman who turned from her desk was older but sharp posture, precise wire-rimmed glasses, hair pinned back with geometric care. She smiled politely. "Just doing the rounds," Darius said easily. Checking the west-facing window seals had some reports of pressure gaps near the frames. "Of course," she said. "Go ahead." As he worked along the windows, cloth in hand, his peripheral vision caught the monitor. Not a standard dashboard. Custom code command architecture he recognized from the relay device he'd pulled off this floor weeks ago. Same design fingerprints. "You're not just here about the windows, are you?" she said. Her voice was completely tranquil, the calm of someone who had already prepared for this. He kept the cloth moving. "Ma'am, I've been in and out of this place a long time. I notice things. Doesn't mean I always understand them." "No," she said, "but you're curious. And in this building, curiosity is a luxury not everyone survives." He finished the windows, gave a polite nod, and left. Downstairs, Sloan was waiting. "It's her," he said. "She's running the entire back channel from that office. The relay, the dormant IP, the 18th floor access, all of it flows through her. Did she know we were onto her? She knows I was watching," he said. "Whether she knows what comes next, that's the question." They had one shot. Over the next 36 hours, under the cover of an emergency maintenance notice citing a wiring fault in the 18th floor's subpanel, Darius accessed Fern Calloway's workstation. 9 minutes. Fingers quick and precise, heart loud in his ears. The keystroke logger went in clean. His exit was clean. Back in the basement server room, they watched the data flow in real time. Commands, directory paths, file transfers routing through shadow servers in sequences that made Sloan's face go white. Then, without warning, a message appeared in a chat window. "They know." 3 seconds later, "Initiate burn sequence." Sloan hit the intercom. "Lock floors 15 through 19. Close all outbound data ports. Kill the fiber link to the backup array. Now." Darius was already moving. He hit the 18th floor with the elevator still chiming behind him. The emergency lights pulsed amber. Fern Calloway sat at her desk, both hands flying across the keyboard. "You're too late," she said, without turning around. "Years of it. All of it." He crossed the room. "What is it you think you're protecting?" She turned. Her eyes were completely calm, the eerie peace of someone who had accepted a consequence a long time ago. "Your people. You think this company serves Houston. It serves itself. Always has. What I was doing was leveling what they wouldn't." He reached past her and pulled the power supply from the wall. The screen went black. She didn't resist. Security arrived in under 2 minutes and walked her out in silence. In the control room, Sloan and Darius surveyed the damage. Most of the core data had survived the emergency lockdown. Fragments were corrupted sections that would take months to reconstruct. But what remained was enough. More than enough. Enough to trace the payments, the shell accounts, the full architecture of betrayal that had been growing inside Hargrove's walls for years. That night they sat in the break room with cold coffee and said nothing for a long time. Finally, Sloan spoke. "Do you think my father feared this would eventually come apart?" "Maybe," Darius said. "Or maybe he was hoping someone would show up who wouldn't look away." She looked at him, something moving behind her eyes. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for not looking away." He nodded. Loud gets you fired. Quiet gets you forgotten. But steady, he raised his cup. Steady's what changes things. When he got home that night, Maya met him at the door with her sketchbook. "I drew the building again," she said. "But this time I made it yellow." "Why yellow?" "Because yellow means safe," she said simply. He stared at the drawing windows, warm and bright under a paper sun. For the first time since this had started, he let himself believe it might be true. The arrest of Fern Calloway didn't close the story. It cracked it open. In the days after, Hargrove settled into a surface calm that didn't fool anyone who knew where to look. Sloan pushed emergency audits, new authentication layers, a full vendor contract review. But something colder was forming underneath the procedural cleanup, the shape of something larger. Agent Vasquez reached out directly. He was lean, patient, the kind of man whose suit suggested ambition, and whose eyes suggested he'd wait as long as necessary. He met them in a back room of the federal field office on Allen Parkway on a Tuesday evening. "Your evidence package was thorough," he said. "Almost too thorough." He looked at Darius. "Both of you have been at this a while." "We had to be," Sloan said. Vasquez leaned forward. "What Greta Nichols helped build isn't limited to Hargrove. We've flagged the same architecture at 4 other companies, energy, defense, logistics, all connected through a holding network called Apex Meridian. Your firm was the first one to turn the lights on. What do you need from us? Darius asked. Patience, Vasquez said. Stay visible. Keep operating like business as usual while we close the net around all of them simultaneously. Sloan frowned. You're asking us to be bait. I'm asking you to be brave, he replied. There's a difference. For the next week, Darius returned to something close to routine walking halls, filing maintenance reports, feeding encrypted updates to Vasquez's team through burner phones at night. Sloan attended board meetings and a charity event at the Petroleum Club, glittering and composed while quietly mapping every person in the room. It was Darius who found the next thread. In the north stairwell, one of his 6 flag dead zones, he found a section of baseboard that sat slightly proud of the wall. Behind a false panel, a compact mesh router, still warm, still transmitting. He texted Vasquez, didn't disable it. That's our live relay, came the response 20 minutes later. They're pulling data right now. You found the wire. The operation shifted from weeks to days. One evening, Sloan stood at her office window, the city stretching in every direction below her. Do you ever think justice is just a performance? She asked as Darius entered. He stopped near the window. Not if you keep pushing after the audience goes home. She turned, and for a moment something in her expression broke open. Not tears, not quite, but something very close to the edge. I wanted to fix a company, she said, but it's starting to feel like something bigger was broken before I ever arrived. Maybe that's the same thing, he said quietly. She looked at him for a long moment. You know, for someone who spent most of his life invisible, you have a bad habit of saying exactly what needs to be said. He picked up his field notebook. I've been practicing. Friday, the operation hit 3 locations simultaneously at dawn. Apex Meridian's registered offices, the Bayou Side warehouse outside Loop 610, and a private estate in Katy, where financial transfers had been routing for 3 years. Darius stayed inside Hargrove with his eyes on the internal feeds. At 8:38 a.m., he clocked a maintenance badge accessing the backup data vault. No work order, no authorization. He moved. The man he found on the 18th floor wore a legitimate Hargrove uniform, but his hands gave him away. Nobody holds a toolkit that way unless they're not planning to use it. They locked eyes. The man ran. Darius went after him through the service corridor, past steel doors, and the hum of the power nodes into the utility wing, where the overhead lights flickered and the walls were raw concrete. The man slipped near a floor drain and spun back, a box cutter materializing from his sleeve. Darius took the slash across his left forearm and tackled him into the wall. When building security arrived, the man was pinned and the blade was on the floor. Later in the building's medical suite, Sloan sat beside Darius while a nurse wrapped the gash. Her hands were folded in her lap. Still, why didn't you wait for backup, she asked. Didn't have time, he said. He didn't get the files. She looked at the bandage, then at him. When my father died, people kept asking about his legacy, what he'd built, what he'd leave behind. She shook her head slowly. I think the answer was supposed to be people like you. It just took too long to find one. I'm not a legacy, he said. I'm just someone who noticed what everyone else decided not to. I know, she said. That's exactly what I mean. The interrogation of the detained operative confirmed what they feared. A contract hire paid through an Apex Meridian subsidiary. One of many. Still scattered, still waiting for signals in other companies they hadn't reached yet. Jillian Reeves, a tech support analyst who had come up through Pemberton's original hiring round 3 years earlier, was caught the following Friday attempting to access a decoy server Darius had quietly set as a trap. She didn't speak as they escorted her out, but at the door she looked back at Darius. You think this ends here, she said. There's no ceiling, just more floors. He didn't answer, but the words lodged in him. 2 weeks later, they testified before a closed federal panel. Darius went first. No performance. Just the plain sequence of events, the power pulse, the relay chip, the CCTV gaps, the midnight footsteps, the box cutter, and the gash on his arm. He told it the way he told Maya difficult things directly, because she deserved to understand what the world actually looked like. Sloan followed. Her voice was steady, controlled, until a senator asked why it had taken so long to come forward. Because I confused loyalty with blindness, she said. I wanted to believe good intentions could outlast bad actors. I know better now. Afterward, they walked out through a side exit into a warm Houston evening that smelled of rain that couldn't quite find its way through the humidity. That's the first time I've said that out loud, Sloan said, watching the bruised purple sky. How'd it feel? Like something I should have said a year ago. She looked at me. Thank you for being there when I finally did. You did the hard part, he said. We did it, she said. And she meant it. Back at Hargrove, the atmosphere in the hallway shifted by degrees, less tight, more direct. People made eye contact with me. The anonymous reporting line Sloan set up received messages within 48 hours. Small ones at first, then larger concerns about vendor practices, questions about data handling suspicions that had been waiting quietly for the door to open. Darius was named head of internal ethics. He laughed out loud when he read the appointment letter. Then read it again, folded it carefully and placed it in the leather notebook next to Maya's stand. Maya drew him in a cape. Because you fight bad guys with the truth, she explained, matter of fact. He pinned it to his office wall, but truth, as it turned out, had one more door to open. A month after the hearing, an envelope arrived on Sloan's desk. No return address. Inside the flash drive. Inside the flash drive, 7 folders, each named after a company. Inside each financial record's communication log routing. Someone inside the broader network had decided to start talking. Darius stood behind her as she scrolled through the files. This stretches way past us, he said. I know, she said, and then she opened the folder labeled Echo. Inside, meeting records, communications, contracts approved, signed, routed through foreign accounts, Apex Meridian payments, dates going back 7 years. Her father's name appeared 11 times. She sat very still. He knew she whispered. He didn't fail to stop her. He helped begin. Darius stayed beside her. Said nothing. Just stood. What do I do with this? You tell the truth, he said, even when it costs more than you budgeted to pay. What if it breaks everything I've been building? Then we build it again, he said. From better materials. The press conference happened on a Friday morning, the Houston sun flooding through high clouds like it had decided to help. Sloan stood at the podium and spoke without notes. She walked through the sabotage, the network, the reforms underway. She named the complicit, and then, with a steadiness that must have cost her everything, she named her father. I loved him, she said. And that love doesn't diminish who he was to me, but it doesn't excuse what he chose to do. Truth doesn't bend for grief. It only asks you to carry both. When Darius took the podium, he was brief. I'm not a whistleblower by profession. I'm a father. I show up. I fix things. I pay attention. What I've learned is that corruption doesn't care what your badge says, and neither does courage. What matters is what you do when you're the only one in the room who's still looking. The crowd was quiet, really quiet. The listening kind. In the months that followed, other companies began submitting to independent audits. New legislation was drafted. A special committee formed. But the real change happened in smaller places, in conversations between managers, who now questioned their hiring practices, in classrooms, where teachers discussed ethics alongside technology, in homes where kids like Maya saw someone who looked like their dad stand on a stage and speak truth to power.
You don't have to turn around.
Darius and Sloan started a foundation. She named it Clear Signal. Its mission: legal support for whistleblowers, funding for ethical technology resources for ordinary people who noticed the things that mattered most and needed someone in their corner when they chose to speak up. The day it launched, they sat in a diner on Washington Avenue, meatloaf, mashed potatoes, no cameras, and raised glasses of sweet tea. Ready for what comes next? Sloan asked. Darius leaned back and looked at her across the table. Ask me that when there's coffee. She laughed. A real one. The kind that surprised her, and they sat together in the ordinary miracle of a Tuesday evening. Two people who had walked through something extraordinary and come out the other side still exactly themselves. One afternoon, Darius took Maya to the small park 3 blocks from their house. Someone had painted a new mural on the brick wall along the fence. A tall woman in a suit beside a man in work uniform standing in front of a city skyline built from circuit boards and blueprints. At their feet, in clean block letters, truth, steady. When the world gets Maya stared at her for a long time. Is that supposed to be you? I don't know, he said. She tilted her head. The man's holding a notebook. Darius looked at the worn leather in the smiled. Then he took her hand, and they stood there together under the afternoon sun, in no hurry at all. The Department of Justice letter arrived on a Thursday. Recognition of service, a commendation, an invitation to consult on upcoming policy. At the very bottom below the official seal, someone had handwritten one line: because of your voices, a generation will grow up less afraid to tell the truth. Sloan folded it and handed it to Darius. He read it once, looked up, ready to keep going. Always, she said, as long as there's coffee. And with that, they stepped into whatever came next, not as heroes, not as symbols, just as two ordinary people who were chosen over and over when it cost something real to keep the lights on. Because that, in the end, was the only legacy worth leaving. Not a name on a building, not a number in it, but a habit of truth passed quietly from one person to the next, like a light carried through a long, dark hallway. And somewhere in Third Ward, Tuesday night, a girl with a sketchbook drew what she imagined it looked like when her father walked into work every morning. Not in a cape, not with a suit, just with his field notebook under his arm and his eyes wide open. She titled it simply, "He Noticed." We don't always get to choose the moments that define us. Sometimes they arrive as accidents. A wrong door opened in the dark, an anomaly noticed in the margin of a log no one else checked, a quiet choice to write the letter instead of staying silent and hoping for the best. Every act of integrity, no matter how small it feels in the beginning, is a stone laid in the foundation of something larger than yourself. You don't have to be powerful to know. You just have to pay attention. You just have to keep showing up. And when you see something that isn't right, even when you're the only one in the room who sees it, trust that your noticing is worth something. Because it is. It always has been. The question was never whether the truth needed to be told. The question was only ever who was willing to be the one to tell it.
You don't have to turn around.
Even when it costs you something. Especially then.